There's going to be magic this weekend. What's up, YouTube? I'm back this time with yet another rankings video. We've got a big movie coming out this weekend, and that Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And so, in honor of this movie, I'm going to be ranking all 8 of the Harry Potter movies based off of the very popular young adult fiction written by J.K. Rowling. This series holds a very dear place in my heart, as it does a lot of other people's. So now I'm going to be ranking my least favorite to my favorite films. So, without further ado, here we go. And I'm pretty sure this is obvious by now, but this is my own personal subjective list. If you have a different order for how these movies are going to go, feel free to comment, let me know your order. But in the meantime, here we go with my order. Coming in at number 8 is, in my opinion, the most forgettable entry in the series, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Were it not for the ending of this movie, I would say would probably be the worst of the series, but that ending really makes it redeemable. So in the Goblet of Fire, which is directed by Donnie Brasco's Mike Newell, Harry continues into his 4th year of education at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and this time is unintentionally and unexpectedly picked to participate in the Tri-Wizard Tournament, a magical confrontation in which 3 different schools end up competing in a series of very deadly wizarding competitions for fame, glory, and a whole lot of cash. However, at the end, which again is the thing that makes this movie memorable for me, Harry finally has his confrontation with his archenemy Lord Voldemort, who is brought back from the dead and begins his reign of terror once again. The film was released in 2005, and it was a transition period for the series as well as for movies in general. I enjoyed it well enough, but again, there's just not a whole lot that's memorable about this movie. A lot was lost in translation from the book to the movie, so unfortunately that is why Goblet of Fire only makes my number 8 spot. Coming in at number 7 is the film that kickstarted the beginning of the end, and that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, released in 2010 and directed by David Yates, the man who had already directed the previous 2 Harry Potter installments. This film saw Harry, Ron, and Hermione begin their quest to find and destroy Voldemort's secret to his immortality, the Horcruxes, those little random objects that contained pieces of his soul. There were trials, there were tribulations, and it started that whole young adult trope of splitting the last book in a series into 2 movies. It worked well for this series, not so well for other series. Unfortunately, because this was only a precursor to what would be a much better second installment, it just jacks this peg a lot lower. Performances were all fine. It was very well made, continuing with the styles and trends that David Yates had started with the previous 2 installments, but unfortunately that is why Deathly Hallows Part 1 only makes my number 7 spot. 7. That's 7. Coming in at number 6 is the film that was my least favorite book, and I slightly enjoyed it more as a movie, even though it lost, once again, like all the other books, lost a lot in translation. That is Harry Potter and the HalfBlood Prince, released in 2009. It was the penultimate edition for the books, and this installment was simultaneously the most lighthearted and one of the most informative of the series. The series finally saw Harry getting tutored one-on-one by Dumbledore in order to finally learn the secret of Voldemort's power. We learned a lot in this book, in the book more so than in the movie, because in the book we learn all about Voldemort's origin, whereas in the movie we only learned about the Horcruxes while barely scratching the surface on his origin. However, the movie also captured everything that I hated about the book, which is all the young adult lovey-dovey bullshit with Harry fantasizing about Ginny and the Felix Felicis, which I thought was good. I thought it brought in a great actor to play the newest addition to the Harry Potter family with Jim Broadbent as Horace Slughorn. I think he did a fine enough job. Unfortunately, David Yates' second entry into the series was just not strong enough for me, which is why HalfBlood Prince only makes my number 6 spot. Coming in at number 5 is the entry that a lot of people hated when it came out. I personally don't hate it that much, but it just so happens that the other entries on this list are higher and I enjoy them more, and that is the second entry, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Chris Columbus's final entry into this film series saw Harry continuing his education with his 2nd year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Unfortunately, things in the school are even worse than last year, as now something is out and about turning the children to stone. I really enjoyed this entry. It was great seeing the entire cast come back from the first installment. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Stone, back when they were not Emma Stone, Emma Watson, back when they were still kids, Robbie Coltrane coming back. It was great to see Richard Harris, what I didn't know at the time was going to be his last time as Albus Dumbledore before his death and replacement by Michael Gambon. I really enjoyed the whole Chamber of Secrets plot. In my opinion, the Chris Columbus book movies are the ones that truly adapted the spirit of the books the best and didn't lose anything in translation. Were there a few things left out? Yeah, but I thought the whole thing about the basilisks and the selectivity with the students and the really playing up how much of a threat Slytherin was going to be and how much it played into Voldemort's unintentional origin, as well as starting off the whole Horcrux trend, which we wouldn't find out until 4 books later, is why Chamber of Secrets makes my number 5 spot. Coming in at number 4 is my favorite book of the series, and I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, even though a lot of people didn't, because yes, it is the largest book, so naturally it left out the most, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, released in 2007 when I was just turning 10 years old. I don't know why, 2007 is a really big year for me. This film was David Yates' first entry into the series, and it saw Harry in his 5th year, still recuperating from the disastrous return of Voldemort and the ending of the Triwizard Tournament from the previous summer, Cedric Diggory's death, and also finally be included into the Order of the Phoenix, which is basically like Dumbledore's underground resistance movement against Voldemort. But the reason why it is underground is because the Ministry of Magic, the pigheads over there, are refusing to believe that Voldemort has come back and are now doing everything they can to hamper Dumbledore and the Order at any step of the way. I really thought the film was a giant step forward for the cast. You really got to see them all really mature and come forward as adults as Harry finally clued them in as the fact that the older generation were not going to be around forever and that Voldemort would step over them just as easily, and if they didn't learn to fight back now, then they were screwed later on. So I really enjoyed that step forward for them. The forming of Dumbledore's army, the introduction of Dolores Umbridge, who, while despicable, turned out to be yet another great villain in the series, and that's why Order of the Phoenix makes my number 4 spot. Coming in at number 3 is the film that started it all, the film that ultimately began the translation of one of the most beloved children's series onto the big screen, and that is 2001's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Directed by Chris Columbus back in 2001, who was famous for the Home Alone movies, you had him bringing in a practically unknown kid cast with unknown child actor Daniel Radcliffe, only 11 at the time, while at the same time balancing him out with a lot of other veteran stage British actors like Robbie Coltrane, Maggie Smith, Richard Harris, Alan Rickman, a bunch of great actors all coming together to ultimately translate one of the most beloved children's books onto the big screen, and they did it beautifully. Chris Columbus' sets are arguably the most beautiful in the entire series. I love his introduction of Harry as a character, the way that they introduce the Dursleys as the psychopaths that they are so perfectly. You feel that wonder when Harry first learns that he is a wizard and he's going into the wizarding school. Once he gets to Hogwarts, his relationship with Ron and Hermione and how that started, just everything in this film is so pitch perfectly done. It's a great introduction to the series. It's one of the best first entries, in my opinion. If I had to make a top 10 list of first entries into great series, Sorcerer's Stone would be very high up there, which is why Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone makes my number 3 spot. Coming in at number 2 is arguably the most well-made film in the series, and that would be entry number 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I didn't enjoy this book or this movie as much when I was younger, but it's one of those things where as I got older, I began to realize why this was the best made entry in the film. In terms of physical representations of themes and growing up, it absolutely did the best. Bringing in Alfonso Cuarón to continue what Chris Columbus started so well was a genius move. He managed to continue the story of all of these characters that we had seen as little kids, and ultimately managed to change the tone to a darker one in order to show that maturity, while at the same time not losing anything that the series had done so well at that point. He also brought in a fantastic Gary Oldman to portray Sirius Black, a character that would end up having a very big part in Harry's life. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie as I got older. It's one of my favorite entries. J.K. Rowling's personification of the Dementors brought perfectly onto the big screen, because they were her representation of while she was dealing with depression. Lupin's struggle with his werewolfism being the perfect representation for AIDS that I completely missed when I was younger. Just everything about this movie works for so long. It's a great stepping point for Harry. It's a great entry in the series, and that's why it makes my number 2 spot. And the final entry in this list, coming in at number 1, my last one, it's the last entry in the series. David Yates had a very tough job in order to close out this beloved children's franchise that had been running for 10 years strong at that point, and he knocked it out of the park, and that is why Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 makes my number one spot. Oh man, just the fact that they really only had 2 major sections left of the book. Like, they had about, like, this section left of the book. They had Gringotts and they had the Battle of Hogwarts, and that's all they had to do. And the fact that they were able to make it such a great conclusion, just everything that the characters have been going through up to this point, it was wrapped up so perfectly and beautifully. Harry's final confrontation with Voldemort, Ralph Fiennes once again killing it in probably his best performance in the entire series. The revelations about Snape and what a great tortured character he was. Harry dealing with the fallout of Dobby's death, which still breaks my heart and makes me break down in tears every time. Snape's final always just... oh my god. This movie holds such a dear place in my heart. It was such a perfect wrap-up to a franchise that I had literally grown up with, and that is why it ultimately makes my number one spot. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Thank you, David Yates and J.K. Rowling, for making my childhood one of the most magical anyone could ever ask for. Alright, that's it. That is my ranking for all 8 Harry Potter movies. What did you guys think? Are you gonna go see Fantastic Beasts this weekend? I know I will. Whatever you guys think, comment below. Let me know. Subscribe, like, follow me on Twitter at Movie Nerd Review. Go to my website, movienerdreviews.com. That's it. I'll see you guys next time.